Muy buenos días, señores y señores, parceros y parceras. My name is Stephen Romero, and today I hold the privilege to present to you the wonderful Republic of Colombia. Colombia is a rich country. I do not mean rich as in physical currency. I mean that Colombia is a country that is rich in history, culture, and diversity. Today we will be taking a look at Colombia's colonization and independence, the natural resources and biodiversity it holds, the violence the country endured in the 20th century, and also we'll be taking a look at a very important cultural staple, that is, soccer. The Republic of Colombia was first discovered by the Europeans in 1499 by Christopher Columbus's compatriot Alonso de Ojeda. Santa Marta would be the earliest form of colonization by the Spanish crown in the country of Colombia by Rodrigo de Bastidas in 1525. Santa Marta's location made it a perfect port for goods to be transported from the Americas to Spain. In 1535, Lieutenant Gonzalo Jimenez de Quesada led an expedition into the interior of the Colombian mainland by following the river Magdalena. This would become one of the 3 expeditions taken into the Andean region, which would result in the establishment of the city of Bogota and many others. The Spanish was fighting a war with Napoleon's France in 1808 known as Peninsular Wars, which would also be a part of the Napoleonic Wars that was going on in Europe. Napoleon advocated for his brother to be the new king of Spain and overthrow Ferdinand VII. This caused major confusion in the colonies, which then resulted in Colombia declaring independence on July 20th, 1810. A new constitution would be formed in 1811 in the newly formed Granada. Simón Bolívar tried to evoke a revolution in 1812, but all the provinces were very fragmented and didn't know what side to take. He departed in Jamaica in 1815, and King Ferdinand would take the throne back in Spain and send over Pablo Morillo to gain order in the revolted continent. This resulted in violent repression on behalf of the Spanish, causing radical ideals of independence. Bolívar would return in 1816 from Jamaica, and finally having united New Granada to join forces for a revolution. The Battle of Boyacá in 1819 solidified independence as they beat the Spanish and entered a newly surrendered Bogota. Colombia is one of the most biodiverse countries in the world. It is the only country in South America with both the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans bordering its shorelines. Colombia is most famous for its Andean region that hosts many of the large cities like Medellin and Bogota. To the east of the country, it also has deserts and grasslands known as Los Llanos, and to the south is the infamous Amazonian rainforest. Within the soils of this labyrinth geography lie some of the most valuable resources Colombia has to offer. The Eje Cafetero holds the 3 provinces responsible for the most production of coffee in the country, and that is Caldas, Quindío, and Risaralda. An important export in Colombian resource is the banana. The largest banana company in Colombia exports 1.87 million tons of bananas in 2017. The mountains of Colombia produce the most amount of emeralds in the world, as it alone is a $10 billion industry a year, and it is the highest quality of emeralds on earth in an area called Muso. Muso is a small town outside of the capital Bogota. Finally, gold holds a special heart in Colombian history. It was one of the original reasons for Spanish conquest, as they heard about the rumors of El Dorado. It was a folklore about the Mixca people of the Andes in which their tribal king was inaugurated in a bath of gold in the middle of the Lake Guaravira. The riches that Colombia holds helps people understand its colonization in the first place. Since the 20th century, Colombia would face the most violent period since independence. Although Simón Bolívar believed in a liberated South America, he felt that the elite class should still rule and control most of the land available. At the turn of the century, rising tensions amongst political factions grew violent and resulted in the death of populist Jorge Gaitán. This would introduce the period known as La Violencia in Colombia. In 1964, a combination of peasants and farmers would unite and form a revolutionary armed forces of Colombia, which is now recognized as Las FARC. It embraced socialist and communist ideals as it was intended to protect the rights of the common citizen, but their overall tendencies would turn violent. The guerrilla tactics of war would result in murder, kidnapping, and extortion. In 2016, the Colombian government proposed a treaty with Las FARC for peace, with the promise of amnesty and pardon for any crimes committed. The 1970s would begin to produce a new faction of evil and violence in an already violent country. That is the rise of the cocaine cartels. The most infamous of all was the unification of the Medellin cartel in 1976. It was headed by Pablo Escobar, managed by Gustavo Gaviria, and shared among los hermanos Ochoas, Jose Gacha, and Carlos Leder. They would unite the most violent narco-terrorist group in history. They produced 80% of the world's cocaine and were worth billions. Pablo's famous philosophy of plata or plomo made him very successful at corrupting politicians and police officers while evoking the personification of Robin Hood to the common individual. Escobar evaded extradition by turning himself into the Colombian government into a luxury prison he built known as La Catedral. He escaped his own prison, which is quite a big shocker, in 1992 and was on the run until 1993, when he was traced into Medellin and killed on a rooftop by DEA and Colombian forces. The Medellin cartel was at war with everyone. They had to worry about DEA and CIA from the United States, Colombian armed forces and police officers. They also had to worry about rivaling cartels like the Cali cartel. They had to fight against communist guerrilla groups like Las FARC and M19. And they were worried about paramilitary groups like Los Pepes, which were people persecuted by Pablo Escobar seeking revenge. The Medellin cartel was responsible for over 110,000 deaths throughout their dynasty and committed some of the most horrible acts in history. Pablo Escobar and the Medellin cartel were associated with the bombing of Flight 203 Avianca, which killed 110 people. Pablo Escobar was also associated with the M19 siege of the Palace of Justice in Bogota. This was an act to go up against the extradition treaty back in the 1970s and 80s with the United States. Also, the Medellin cartel invented the concept of the car bombs. Although the past two chapters of Colombian history depict nothing but violence and fragmentation of the country as a whole, there was one factor that gave a whole country joy and happiness, and it gave a country pride. It gave them orgullo of being a Colombian. The Colombian national team was experiencing a golden age of soccer in the 1990s, with the collection of world-class players like Carlos El Pibe Valderrama, Freddy Rincon, Faustino Asprilla, Leonel Alvarez, Andres Escobar, and Reneguita. This combination of star power and many more helped Colombia qualify for 3 World Cups in the 1990s, with the most memorable win against Argentina before the 1994 World Cup. Colombia was playing Argentina on their home soil, and we had beaten them 5-0 in their home stadium. Unfortunately, Colombia's violence would catch up to the national team, as before they played their second group stage match against the United States, they received death threats if they lost or if a specific player was fielded. Colombia needed to win this game because they had lost their first group stage match against Romania 3-1, and if they lose their second match, mathematically they don't have enough points to qualify to the knockout rounds. While they were playing their game, with a lot of pressure, Andres Escobar would accidentally score an own goal after trying to deflect the ball away while it was being crossed inside the penalty area. Colombia would lose and was eliminated from the World Cup. Andres Escobar, when he returned to Colombia 10 days later, was murdered. This would cause the national team to crumble and face a dark age of soccer, not qualifying for a tournament until 2014. In 2012, a newly picked coach by the name of Nestor Peckerman, in origins of Argentina, was signed as the head coach of Colombia and produced a renaissance for Colombian soccer. Having world-class players like Radamel Falcao and James Rodriguez to work with, they would successfully qualify for the World Cup in 2014 and in 2018, reaching as far as the quarterfinals. After reviewing some points of Colombian culture and history, it is very clear that a common theme seems to occur. Colombia is resilient. When the members of the New Granada joined forces with Simón Bolívar, they were resilient in overcoming a powerful army for independence. After 60 years of civil war, Colombia continues to push hard for peace amongst each other. No matter if they are FARC, M19, ELN, they are Colombians. Their faith and patience brought down a monster among men and his crew from further destruction of the country. And finally, their resilience brought back the smiles to every soccer fan Colombia has, and that's a lot of them. Colombia will continue to demonstrate resilience no matter what challenges they face, and will continue to fight hard to be the great country that it is, has been, and always will be.